have you authorized the uniformed military to detain or arrest protesters in Los Angeles?
Senator, I would just start by saying you're not a protester if you're throwing concrete
100%.
at law
Arrest those
enforcement
people.
officers.
Throw them in the jail. 100%. But what you're doing is something different. Everyone knows this is a political decision, right? So we don't trust that you're using the best interests of the military, certainly, and of democracy on top of that. So have you given the order? That's all I want to know. It's not theoretical. For the U.S. military, not law enforcement. They can arrest all day long. That's their job. Do they have the ability, the uniformed military, to arrest and detain protesters currently today? It's a yes or no thing. Authority.
It's sort of amusing the extent to which the speculation is out there. These troops are given very clear orders.
Then what is the order? Then list it out for us. Be a man. List it out.
Senator demands to know if the Secretary of Defense has authorized the military to shoot at unarmed American protesters. Slotkin presses for a simple yes or no answer, and what unfolds raises alarming questions about democracy, the rule of law, and whether the military is being dragged into politics.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I said in your hearing, when you had your confirmation hearing, that my biggest concern with you at the helm was the potential use of the military in ways that contradict the Constitution or that taint what I hope we all want, which is an apolitical military. And when I asked you about whether you would accept an order that was actually given to your predecessor, Secretary Esper, Trump's SecDef, to deploy active duty troops against unarmed protesters and to, in Secretary Esper's words, shoot at them, shoot at their legs, you said this was all theoretical. Here we are, a few months later, you've deployed 4,700 troops to Los Angeles and against the wishes of the governor. And my colleague across the aisle was right. It is the first time since 1965 that we have deployed guard troops without the permission of the governor. In all the instances he laid out, the president had sent in the military to protect protesters, not against the protesters. So you may dismiss it, but I feel like this is a fundamental issue of American democracy. If you love your country and you want an apolitical military, then it should be the last resort, not the first resort in our country to use them. So to get to the non-theoretical, have you authorized the uniformed military to detain or arrest protesters in Los Angeles?
Senator, I would just start by saying you're not a protester if you're throwing concrete
100%.
at law
Arrest those
enforcement
people.
officers.
Throw them in the jail. 100%. But what you're doing is something different. Everyone knows this is a political decision, right? So we don't trust that you're using the best interests of the military, certainly, and of democracy on top of that. So have you given the order? That's all I want to know. It's not theoretical. For the U.S. military, not law enforcement. They can arrest all day long. That's their job. Do they have the ability, the uniformed military, to arrest and detain protesters currently today? It's a yes or no thing. Authority.
It's sort of amusing the extent to which the speculation is out there. These troops are given very clear orders.
Then what is the order? Then list it out for us. Be a man. List it out. Did you authorize them to detain or arrest? That is a fundamental issue of democracy. I'm not trying to be a snot here. I'm just trying to get the actual. Did you authorize them to do that?
All of these orders and what they're sent there to do are public. They're there
so say it. So say it. Yes or no?
I'd like to.
Please, yes or no?
As I've said time and time again through interruption, they're there to protect law enforcement,
do they have
ICE
the ability
officers
to arrest?
who are trying to do their job, deporting illegals who were allowed in by the previous administration.
So they cannot arrest and detain citizens of the United States, the uniformed military.
As we've stated, if necessary, in their own self-defense, they could temporarily detain and hand over to ICE. But there's no arresting going on. And you know this better than you're trying to play political games. There's no arresting of U.S. personnel.
Of the U.S. military against members of the protest. Have you authorized U.S. military cyber tools to investigate people participating in these protests? Yes or no?
Certainly in no way that I'd be aware of.
Okay, that's good. I love that answer. That's great. Have you given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way, my colleagues across the aisle.
What is that based on? What evidence would you have that an order like that has ever been given?
Giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right. He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So your poo-pooing of this, it just shows you don't understand who we are as a country, who we are. And all of my colleagues across the aisle, especially the ones that served, should want an apolitical military and not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life, so I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh my God. So your former predecessor, I guess that's not enough for you. Okay, on Iran. I don't think there's a debate, there's like a catfight going on in your own party about whether to go after Iran. Have you commissioned any day after planning? So any force protection, any use of ground troops in Iran, any cost assessments? Because I don't think we doubt what we can do as a country in the attack. It's the day after with Iraq and Afghanistan that so many of us have learned to be so deeply concerned about. Have you authorized day after planning?
As I've said, we have plans for everything, Senator.
Okay.
What you just witnessed wasn't just another fiery exchange in Congress. It was a direct confrontation over one of the most dangerous lines a democracy can cross, the use of the military against its own citizens. Senator Elissa Slotkin wasn't asking theoretical questions here. She was pressing for something every American deserves to know. Has the U.S. military been ordered to arrest, detain, or even shoot at protesters on American soil? And the reason she pressed so hard is because history tells us this isn't a paranoid fear. It's a very real possibility. Think back to the summer of 2020. When Americans took to the streets after the killing of George Floyd, we saw heavily armed federal forces deployed against protesters. We saw peaceful demonstrators tear-gassed so the president could take a photo in front of a church. And we later learned from former Defense Secretary Mark Esper himself that Trump asked whether troops could be used to shoot protesters in the legs. This isn't speculation. It's not a rumor whispered in the hallways. It's testimony from the man who was in the room. That's why Slotkin refuses to let Secretary Hegseth dance around the question. She wants clarity. She wants reassurance. Because this isn't just about one city, one protest, or one administration. It's about the principle that separates a democracy from an authoritarian regime. Civilians should never have to fear that their own military will be used as a weapon against them. Notice how Slotkin grounds her argument in patriotism and lived experience. She isn't attacking the military, she's defending it. She says openly that she has served alongside them, that she respects them, and that her deepest fear is not that soldiers themselves would cross this line, but that political leaders will drag them into a role they were never meant to play. That's a vital distinction, because the U.S. military is supposed to be apolitical, a shield that protects the country from outside threats, not a sword turned inward on its own people. But here's where the exchange becomes chilling. Instead of a firm, unequivocal no, the military has not and will not be ordered to arrest or shoot protesters, we get hedging. We get word games about self-defense and temporary detentions. We get dismissals of Esper's testimony as just something from a book. In other words, not clarity, but ambiguity. And ambiguity on this question is dangerous, because when the government won't say no, it leaves open the possibility of yes. That's why Slotkin's voice breaks through so powerfully when she pleads, "Please tell me it's no." That's not just a line for the cameras. That's the voice of someone who knows what it means when democracies fail to hold the line between law enforcement and military power. That's the voice of someone warning us that once that line is crossed, it's nearly impossible to uncross. The stakes here are massive. If the military is politicized, if it becomes a tool for cracking down on dissent rather than protecting the Constitution, then the very foundation of American democracy is at risk. It's not alarmist to say that. It's historical fact. Countries that erode that line end up with generals in politics, soldiers in the streets, and citizens who live in fear of their own government. And that's why this hearing matters, because democracy isn't protected by slogans. It's protected by accountability, by leaders willing to ask hard questions, and by citizens who refuse to stay silent when those questions go unanswered. So here's the takeaway. If you care about democracy, if you care about keeping the military a force for defense and not repression, then moments like this are your wake-up call. This isn't about left versus right. This is about whether we still believe in government by the people, for the people, and whether dissent is protected as a right or crushed as a threat. Now I want to hear from you. Should the U.S. military ever have a role in handling civilian protests? Is there ever a justification, or is that a line that must never be crossed under any circumstance? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because these are the conversations that shape the future of our democracy. And if you want to keep up with the most important moments that reveal the battle for America's soul, make sure you subscribe.